Don't want to run your inverter and get fantastic Starlink internet in your RV? I've got the answer, and it's plug and play, no cutting wires or soldering stuff. So in this video we're going to look at Starlink RV setup in our Jayco Silverline. We're going to look at how we mount the dish, we're going to look at what we do with the 15 meters of cord, we're going to look at how we power up on 12 volt, and I do all this without altering the original Starlink kit in any way. And finally, we'll see how much power Starlink uses on 12 volt. Hey, if you've just joined us, we are Kiwi Wanderers. Myself, Sandy and Holly the dog. And it's a fantastic morning up here in Northland. I'm feeling really positive about today, as Sandy has done that special thing she does for me in the morning. Making breakfast. I don't know what you guys were thinking. Anyway, we love Starlink. It's been great for us to travel around New Zealand, but we needed it to do two different tasks. Number one, we need it to be in standard non-modified form to run on 240 volts, as we spend some of our time outside the caravan, either house sitting or looking after the family batch in the Marlborough Sounds. Number two, we needed it to be running in our van using the 12 volt system. So in this video, I'm going to talk about our 12 volt setup. So Starlink is able to get internet anywhere in New Zealand as long as you have a reasonably clear view of the sky to the south. So for this reason, we have Starlink on a pole mount, an alloy pole that we bought from Trade Tested, and it raises the dish above the van, and it doesn't matter which way the van's pointing, the dish can always rotate itself to point south. So having a clear view to the south is something we always consider when we're deciding where to park. Of course, if we were surrounded by trees, we could still use the standard mount and position it away from the van where we can see the sky. The cord is 15 meters long, so it gives us plenty of scope. So I'll run through what we have to do to get great internet. Step one, unpack. The genuine Starlink case is expensive, but it does protect the dish very well, and as I said, we transport it down the Marlborough Sounds on a boat, and sometimes in the hold, sometimes even on the deck, and I can rest assured that it's well protected. Step two, mounting on the flagpole. It's pretty easy. We've used a mount from Go Wireless, our pole from Trade Tested, and we just connected up with this rack that Jayco very nicely placed on the back of our van for this very purpose, I'm sure. Well, actually, yeah, we don't use the bike rack because we're old and we have e-bikes, so and they're too heavy for this rack, so we have our bikes in the back of the ute, which works well, as they're not in plain sight for the rat bags, and we have no problems leaving our van, while we're tiki touring around. Especially because we have the Wi-Fi alarm system fitted. Okay, step three, plug it all in. Very important to have everything connected before you power it up, because the lead has this unusual connector on it, which you can't buy anywhere, and yeah, there's been some problems if they're plugged and unplugged while being powered up. I try and leave the connectors plugged in wherever possible. In fact, I don't think the lead that has been out of the dish since we got it, maybe once, not sure. We plug in the adapter that takes it from Starlink to normal Cat 5. Then we plug our Cat 5 into the Space Tech power supply, connect up our modem to the Space Tech power supply, and boom, power everything up. In about 2 minutes we have real fast internet. I don't normally set it up on this table, obviously. It's neatly tucked away in our side locker of our van. The cord just sits on the tyre, as it's made to be outside, and the lead goes inside the little computer room on the side of the van with this great little bung, which comes from Space Tech as well. Once everything is connected, I flick the switch inside, and boom, in 2 minutes I've got razor fast internet. I love it. But if I can get approval from the War Office, I think I might update to a standalone cable for the van, just cut to the right length, and then have a space stick cool looking plug that just plugs into the side of the van. Once I've done that, it will take even less time to set up. I've thought about mounting the dish on the roof with some flat mount type thing, but I really do need the ability to use it in the standard form. Ooh, maybe I could get another dish. And no, the War Office would never approve that. As you can see, it doesn't take very long to set up. I was trying to get an estimate of how many times I've packed it down and set it up in the 18 months we've had Starlink, and I'm guessing about maybe 65 times in total, and every time I'm amazed how well it works. Power use. When Starlink is set up in its original state, it uses 240 volt power, which it converts to 48 volts, and then it also converts the 240 volt power to 12 volts to do the Wi-Fi thing. And in your home it works well, except the Starlink router is a bit average and the coverage is not that good. But yeah, it works. But in an RV it's a bit different. We start off with 12 volts or 24 volts in our batteries. Then we use an inverter to ramp that up to 240 volts to power the Starlink router. Then the Starlink steps it down to 12 volts and 48 volts to power the dish and broadcast the Wi-Fi. There are power losses with all that stepping up and down, and as you know, when you're off-grid, power use gets a fair amount of priority. So we have the Starpower 1224 power DC power supply. This has significantly reduced the amount of power Starlink uses. We measure our power use with the Victron app, which is connected to a shunt in our system and measures all the ins and outs of the power. Yeah, great little system. Originally, when we got Starlink and we ran Starlink in the standard form with our 2000 watt inverter, it uses 180 watts after it's booted up and it's connecting. About 120 of this is the inverter, so obviously we couldn't run that overnight, as it would be we'd be dead in the morning. So the second attempt I had was I bought a 300 watt just standalone inverter, and it used about 60 or 70 watts once Starlink had booted up and everything. Way better, but still not something we could leave on full time, especially as I wanted to bypass the Starlink router and get it a better router for, yeah, obviously a 12 volt one. Now we're on the Starlink with the Starpower setup, and we only use on average 30 watts after it is booted up. Of course, and so of course we can leave that on overnight. And that's great because all our devices, the cameras and the GoPros and the laptops and the phones, all back up to the cloud overnight, so it's great. I'm not sure our travelling would be the same if we didn't have this Starlink set up, because I work online and it would restrict where we could go, and now with the Space Tech gear we're all set up, we can be off grid pretty much forever. Thanks Starlink and Space Tech. Okay, so that's our Starlink setup. Well, I'll put links to all the stuff we've used in the description below. We have some good stuff coming up, but we're overseas for a while, so yeah, so you might see some overseas videos, so keep your eye out for those. Thanks for watching.
Tonight.